here's my take. I think a lot of, um, wait, can I be selfish for 1 second? I made a reel and I want to know if you guys think it's funny before I post it, but it's sort of like on this topic. So tell me if you think it's funny. I'm really, really working on being funnier, just to be transparent. I feel like that is one of the things I'm not as good at. So I'm really working on like letting myself go there. So anyway, the reel was basically like, and also tell me if you don't like this because that's helpful too. But it was basically like, so how are all the entrepreneurs doing who started in 2020 when it was a free for all that now actually have to have solid offers and great strategy? Because like I actually want to know that, but I also kind of think it's like a funny way of seeing it. But like I actually want to know that. Like, how is that going on? POV, you're working on being funnier in reels. Michelle, maybe I should just make that one and make my life easier. Working on being funnier. I really am. Really am. And then sometimes I'll like ask Kenny, I'm like, is this funny? And he's like, I'm so not sure what the right answer is right now. Because no, but also I don't think I'm supposed to say no. Polly said 100% this, right? But like I really wonder that. Like I'm like, how is everyone okay? Is everyone okay? Because like if you started in this industry in 2020, it blew up like in 2 seconds without you having to do anything. Things have shifted and it's really like could be quite challenging. Like, are we checking on everyone? Are we okay? That's a real question. Check out the book, Do You Talk Funny? Oh, wait, hold on. I have to know this. Do You Talk Funny? It's about being funny as a business person. Rebecca, I'm writing that down. Wait, can you shoot? It just went away. Can you say it one more time? Talk funny. I feel like your best funny is spicy hot take. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love how you always go there, but also like when you did the Halloween trend. I thought that was funny. I was proud of myself for the Halloween one. Thank you for calling that out, Michelle. That was one of my funnier moments. I didn't know you weren't funny. Note to self. I know. Yeah. I mean, if you think I am Belinda, I'll totally take that, but it's not my thing. Okay, wait, I'm gonna write this down. Do you talk funny? Okay. See, look at this. You guys are just helping me out so much. Okay. Anyway, should I do that reel? Let me know. But that is on this topic, right? Oh, that is me. Started at the end of 2020 as a general biz coach. Now I've decided to offer very specific services. I'm moving into offering bookkeeping and still business coaching, but informed by actual financials. Love that. Yeah. I think that's like the perfect example of like, if there was a point where you could start and like, it didn't matter if you were super generalized, like it pretty much just worked if you showed up. Right. And then I really do think that shifted. And I feel like nobody wants to hear that. I definitely think nobody wants to say that from a business coach perspective. But like the truth is, I really think it has. And I think anyone that's being honest about what's happening right now will tell you the same. And are saying the same, but I think not like publicly online. And I think that people are very threatened by that too, because if your message was always like none of this, like it could be as easy as possible, of course it's threatening when it's like it's less easy now. But also I think there's like, this is something we'll kind of talk about as we get into it, but I think that it's not as big of a pendulum shift as it gets made out to be either. It's not like, well, it was so easy and now it's so hard. I don't think it's that either. But I think that like we miss that in between space. And so I want to talk about that too. This just makes me want to be like, Lacey, is this a strategy or a mindset issue? The people already think you are funny. Well, how do I want to say this? Like, I don't think I'm like a terribly unfunny person. I just have trouble like conveying it in that way. Like, I'm not, does that make sense? Like, I'm like, I think I like am like enjoyable to be around or like people find humor in me, but I'm not like, oh man, I just dropped like the funniest one liner. So that is like the version of me that I am playing with. I feel like maybe I should go to like improv classes or something like that. That could be like very stretchy and fun. Anyway, not committed to that, just putting that out there. Yeah, different kinds of funny. Exactly. Being comedic on Insta is its own craft. It's so true. So true. Um, One-liner, Lacey, exactly. Also, getting humor to translate on social can be challenging. I agree with that. I think it's so different. It's really like my brain is like working on that. But in a way, it's always been like, no, most people give up in the first 2, 3 years. I've been observing since 2016. I think, I think that is true to an extent, Deidre, but I think like a lot of this is my perspective, right? But I think a lot of when people were giving up in the first 2 to 3 years, it was like less like because it's harder and more it was like because they'd overspent, overinvested, things like that, you know? And I think now it is a little bit different, but I agree with you that like for the forever, it's always like most people kind of dip out in the first 2 to 3 years. Um, Hi, Julie. Good to have you. Elisa said, I feel like it's just gotten realer, for lack of better words. Like it used to be do whatever you want and make 100K month. Yeah, 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 totally. I also think a lot of people realize growth without burnout is harder and harder. Totally. Let's talk about that. I feel like that's something I want to say. So, yeah, to get specific, Michelle said, what do you feel like is harder now that wasn't before? So, let's get specific. So, I feel like, um, oh, okay, good, Julie. Yes, we'll definitely talk about that. Okay, so I think things take more precision. So that's like one way I would say it. So I think like before you could kind of just like put out a more generic, for lack of a better way to say it, message that would still go well, in part because I think the market was just being flooded at that time, but also I don't think the market was in saturation in the way that it is now. And so both of those things really work to our advantage, right? Like in 2020, so many people flooded the online space. We're so interested in everything, like absolutely popping. Excuse me. On top of that, like just showing up was like a big deal, right? So like the advice in 2020 was pretty much like just show up and you'll get clients, you know? And that was like the work. It's like, how do you get people to just show up, right? And so it was like mindset, mindset, mindset. Just get people to show up and then you will pretty much get clients, right? I think that's not the case anymore. I think it does take a lot more precision, I think, with your messaging, meaning like it, I'm trying to think of a good example, but it's like the difference between like hire me and I'll help you make money in your business versus like a much more specific version of that of like I help you whatever with your systems and business models so that you can go from this to this to that, right? Like even if you look at reels and what's like catching fire right now, it's all really specific. It's all like eliciting strong emotions, like all of it's less like the teachy kind of content and it's more like getting in there and reading your people's brains, right? I was doing an intensive for someone last week who has a really, really, really big Instagram following and has pretty much built like hundreds of thousands of followers off educational content. And she was like, wow, this has changed so much. Like my entire brand was built off educational content. I'm like working on shifting around that. And I think that that's part of it too. And like Deidre is calling out, right? Pre-chat GPT, right? Where like we couldn't get that same education elsewhere, or we weren't like, well, is that really written by a human or was that just pulled from chat GPT, right? So I think that part has shifted a lot too, where we're looking for more that like human to human connection, that thing that elicits emotions, that feeling understood, that precision, like all of that has changed considerably, I think. Leslie said, I wish I had taken advantage of 2020 more. I want that. I also think people were looking to the internet for education and now people don't want education. Totally agree with that, Katrina. I could not agree with that more. I feel like in 2020, we were all freaking stuck at home. We were like, educate me, entertain me, like um in like a deeper way. Like we wanted something to like catch our attention and teach us something. Now I think we're like back out in the real world and like by and large overstimulated. And so the idea of going 10 slides deep on an educational post on Instagram is just like less exciting than it was at that time, right? So I think that that has changed. And so like it's always been valuable to like get in your people's brains, right? But I think like the level of which that is required now is so different. And I just see this with my clients so often of like when I can get them, like right now, I feel like one of the biggest pieces of like work that I'm doing with my clients, like I was saying to you guys, like in 2020, it was more like, how do we just get people to show up? How do we just get them to show up? Like now, I feel like one of the biggest pieces of work I'm doing with my clients right now is how do I get them to slow down for 10 extra minutes to really, really think about something before they move forward with it, put it out, that kind of thing. I feel like that is the vast bit of what I've been doing lately is like, no, 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 let's slow this down for for 2 more seconds. Let's really sit with this. Let's really curate this. Let's really make sure this is spot on. And when we do that, it fucking works. Like every time almost when you really lean into that. But coming from this land where we all used to live of like, just get shit out there, just do it imperfectly, just move quickly. It should be easy to precision, excellence. Think about it for 10 minutes longer. It's a big fucking shift. And so there's like a lot that has to go on in your brain to make that shift, right? Curation over education. I love that, Erica. Katrina said, I think the myth that more information would provide the magic formula of success was huge, and people are realizing that isn't how it works. Totally. Hey, Deborah. Freaking yes. Discomfort with slowing down. Yes, exactly. People are doing without strategy and metrics, making sure it's the right thing versus just a thing. Yeah, 100%. Like, I feel like self included, like that was my content for a while because it could be, you know what I mean? Right? Like, it's like, let's just get it out. Let's go. And I mean, I'm still proud of the content I put out and stuff, but like, what I see with my own content right now is like when I slow down for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 minutes, it will always make a big difference. And when I don't, it's still fine, but it's not gonna pop like it would have in 2020, right? Like, do you know what I mean? And so I think that's really important for all of us to just like say and be honest about. And again, some of that is that change from like where we were in 2020 to where we are in 2024. But some of it is also market the market in terms of like it's just way, way, way more saturated. Um, it just is, you know. There are more people, and just so we know, like saturation doesn't mean you can't still have a share of the market. Like that's not at all what it means, right? But it does mean that you have to stand out in a different way. It's not like, mm, you know, there's 5 people for me to pick from. And like, I ended up on a call with you and I like you. It's like, there's 5,000, you know, like it's just so different. Um, Belinda said my stats are showing an average of 7 seconds before they're gone. That small amount of time to grab them. Good to know now. Yeah, totally. Jeter said, side note, I love Monday evenings because I get to watch your live streams. Never changes tradition. Oh, thank you. That makes me so happy. I love that. Especially even because this is sort of like a not uplifting subject, though. Thank you for saying that, but we will get to the uplifting part. But like, yeah, so work before it was like, it's all mindset, and it still is, right? It's still like mindset is still everything in terms of staying in it, playing the game, being willing to adapt, being willing to shift, being willing to sit with your shit for 5 extra minutes and slow down. Like it's still all that, but I feel like before it was just the mindset of like, can we just get you to show up? If we can pretty much get you results. And now it's like, yeah, that's the first hurdle. But then after that, there's a hurdle of like, are you getting in your people's head? Are you being precise with your marketing? Are you really, really like landing it for them? Because if you are, then yeah, it's pretty easy. And if you're not, of course, it's going to get harder. And if you're used to not having to do that, it's going to feel like a big lift. You know, I feel like there was such like a guru mentality in our space. Oh, fuck, there still is, right? But such a guru mentality in our space, kind of like if someone had made a certain amount of money or like had gotten a certain, you know, like level of notoriety or collateral, they could pretty much do no wrong. And it's not that way anymore. Like you could build a really, really successful business. And if you don't keep showing up for it or your people in a way that keeps them engaged, it's going to be gone. Like, so when I say a lot of people are going to leave, I don't just mean like new people. I mean people that have been in the game for a while because they're not making the adaptation to this, you know? I actually find it very uplifting to know that many will exit the market. Survival of the fittest, you know? Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Totally. Lisa said, okay, I'm interested in this. I took on a dream job and I'm still running my business on the side. And I've actually seen a lot of peers do the same. And I feel like for the longest time, it felt like a no-no. And 100% entrepreneurship is the holy grail. And I personally thrive in doing multiple things at once. Yeah, Elisa, like I think Jen, my co-CEO at Datable, is a perfect example of that. Like she's kind of bounced back and forth over the years because she's really good at building businesses. And so she'll like build one and sell it, then go back to corporate and whatever. And this is the first time she's really doing both consistently. And it's where she's the happiest. And it's just what fits her best. And she just like knows that now after trying different versions of it. And so I totally agree with that. Yeah, for sure. Deborah said guru mentality for sure. There's always so much easy leverage available in 2020 that's no longer easily leveraged anymore as buyers get smarter for sure. I've seen plenty of high profile folks in this space put out thin offers for wild money because they think they can to crickets. Yeah, totally. Um, Hearing this is relief. I'm 100% for real depth, emotion, and actual connection. Forcing the quick and dirty just show up has always been a note for me, and I'm so ready to burn that struggle. Oh, I love that note, but that's awesome. Katrina said, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of clients who are burned out on coaching after working with inexperienced coaches who just had visibility and now are more hesitant to purchase or intentional in their decisions. And that precision you spoke of is huge. Yes, that. So that's another factor too. I didn't even think about that, but I think you're so spot on. I feel like I talked about this a lot last year, but I think it's definitely still like bleeding over is trust is another big factor of this. Like it's not as easy to get someone to buy as it once was because a lot of buyers have bought shit that did not work out for them, did not serve them. And so like that level of like quick purchase or that level of lack of barrier in terms of like them having their own objections, etc. So different now. I think so many people have been burned, unfortunately, or had difficult experiences, gone to burnout, which I want to talk about that too. And yeah, I think it just makes it more challenging. Oh, I'm so glad that felt permission giving with Jen. Yeah, yeah. And listen, I think like it depends on what kind of job you have. Like I had a job that was like very toxic and draining. And so like would I want to do that alongside this? No. But if you have a great job that you love, it's different, So I think that's important to remember too. Especially huge money without results. People are hesitant. Yes, totally. Asha said, oh yeah, so many people are perceive the coaching industry as MLM called smoke. So yeah, 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 totally. And I think that's getting worse, obviously, as like more people flood the space because it means there's less like quality in it. People are going to have bad experiences. That's like, I think that I wrote an email like this and it might be in the sequence for my mini course. Pretty sure that's where it is. But I basically talked about how like part of why I made that mini course on like the ultimate mini course to maximize results in one-on-one coaching is totally selfish because I feel like I want to be part of making sure our industry doesn't lose so much trust that like we can't recover from it. Like not that I'm saying my one little mini course is gonna fucking do that. Of course it's not, but like I'm like, I see this problem and I want to like contribute to a solution because yeah, it's bad out there. Um, and then I also think the burnout thing is so real. I feel like I wrote this other post. I don't know why I'm telling you guys about all the posts, but I'm just like on a content loop around this lately about how you could take home like over 130K cash with 2101 or with 2101 clients at a really reasonable rate. And I broke down like every bit of the math around hours worked, taxes, expenses, team. Like I went like really deep on it and was trying to show like there are really good sustainable business models out there that will get you literally taking home after taxes over six figures. But part of the problem is so many people are getting so burnt out in our space because they think they have to have everything. Like they need one-on-one and a mastermind, and then they need a passive product, and then they need a course, and then they need this and this and this, right? And they're just spending all this time building all this shit, none of which is backed by data or working very well. And so they've dumped tons of time, tons of energy, tons of money, and they're burnt the fuck out. And they kind of have nothing to show for it except a bunch of stuff that they built, you know what I mean? That nobody's like buying or that none of it's working. And so I think, again, that old mentality of just build it and people will come, just show up, right? It's not the same. And so the idea of like build the capacity to, have a million people come through the doors in your business is like so unrealistic at this point for most people. And a lot of the people that are getting like huge, huge numbers like that have either been at it for a while and have built that over time. That person I was talking about that I did the intensive with, she has been at it for a while. She has built this community over time. She has put blood, sweat, and tears into it. Like she loves her people so fucking hard. And or they're willing to play big in terms of like ads and paid oh my God, paid advertisement. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, you know, I have some clients that are spending like 50K a month sometimes on ads, which like can work out in the right model with the right offer at the right stage of scalability. But like most people don't actually want a business model like that. Like in theory, they're like, oh, yes, I want to help, you know, hundreds and thousands of people. But when you're like, okay, do you want to put 50K a month in ads costs? Do you want a big team? Do you want that? Like, they're like, oh God, no. Right. And again, either is fine, but I think the burnout comes from thinking that like all of that should be easy and all of it should come quickly. And if you just create it, someone will come. Like it's so, so difficult. And I think people are just really getting burnt out so quickly on this kind of stuff. And again, without anything to back up that information. Like they're not getting coaching that actually looks at data, actually looks at what's working. They're getting coaching that's just like, well, that offer didn't work. Go try this offer instead of like, well, how do we make this offer work? Why isn't this a no-brainer? Why is this offer not popping? What about your marketing isn't precise enough that people are about? Like, I just feel like that kind of coaching is so rare right now, especially the data front, right? Don't even get me started on that. But and it's just leaving people so disillusioned, so burnt out, so like lost, I think is really it. They're like, something's not working how it used to work. What the actual fuck, right? And I just feel like it's crazy making in our space right now. And I think unless you have some perspective on it, it's going to be really, really, really hard to stay in it. Yeah, Jess said, and a team to run it all. Exactly. Deborah said, yes, that part. Not one optimized funnel in place, and it is just leaking energy and time and revenue. It's like so true. Um, Hi, Janet. Yes, intention. Sarah said so much delusion right now. I know. They want instant gratification instead of looking at their offers and refining it. Totally. Um, I really a link to a post breaking down the biz model, six-figure income. Would love to see that. Oh, Asha, I didn't post it yet. I'm gonna post it. I can tell you when I'm gonna post it. Hold on. And I can also just send it to you before I post it if you just want to see it now. Um, I'm gonna post it on Wednesday. I just looked at my I just looked at my calendar. I'm gonna post it on Wednesday. Um, but yeah, I think it'll be good context. But all that to say, like, I think the pendulum is huge. It's either like everyone's over here in kind of like delusional land that like nothing has changed, or everyone's capitalizing on the fact that things have changed and are like really making it seem so fucking complicated. And so you're almost like in these two extremes of like, it's actually really, 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 really complicated, or it's actually not complicated at all. And I'm like just not using enough energy. And for me, what's true here is the middle ground. We need to slow down a little bit. We need to take 10 extra minutes to think about a thing before we do it. We need to really, really know our people in a way that we maybe have never been called to. We need to make sure our offers are great. But these are not difficult things. These are not things that involve like all of this complicated strategy that like you don't know what you don't know, blah, 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 blah. Like it's none of that. Like I am behind the scenes in these businesses all day, every day. Like I can tell you, nobody is using these like massively complicated strategies that you know nothing about. It's like they're just getting really, really, really fucking good at what they're doing. And that's what I feel like most people won't slow down to take the time to do. Or all the messaging in our space won't tell them that because that's not messaging that like sells usually, right? Like this, if I was trying to like sell you something on this live stream, this wouldn't be like the sexiest frame for it. But I think it's the truest frame. Like if we can really realize like doing very, very well at the things we're already doing is probably the fastest path to anything we want, it gets way easier. And then also I'm going to say this thing that I feel like is like, what's the word? The absolute like antithesis of like every message in our space. And I probably shouldn't even say this to be honest, because I'm sure like everyone's gonna be like, oh well fuck, I'm not gonna hire Lacey. But I think the idea that has gotten sold Oh, hold on. I don't want to miss what everyone's saying. Okay, good. Yes, I'll post it Wednesday, Asha. Katrina said, I also think people are just more tired from life outside as well, politics, cost of living, and it can just feel hard to do the work versus the ease of getting a job. Yeah, totally. So many of my clients are just like, do I want to burn it all down? Yeah, I think that makes sense for sure. I think this is going to be a hard year for that reason too. Like we're in an election year, and I think some people just, yeah, it gets heavy fast. Um, Elisa said, yep, I see this clients all the time that the foundation just isn't there. It's like doing the decoration without having the actual cake to decorate. Yes, totally. Okay, so the thing I shouldn't say, but I'm going to say is I think this idea of endless scalability in our industry is so detrimental. I just can't get over how much I think this is like killing so many business owners is like they really think that the only way to be happy in their business is to find like this thing that is endlessly scalable um and like push everyone that they could possibly think of through it. And like yes, there is definitely a place for scalability in business, but this idea of like your business is only a good business if it scales endlessly, I think is absolutely fucking asinine. And it's hurting so many people. Like, if you want like an endlessly scalable business, the business to build is not a fucking coaching service or like service business. Like go build a tech company, go build a product basis, like whatever. But if you want endless scalability, the idea of doing it in this industry, I think it like doesn't fully track for me, to be totally honest with you. I think there are like I have clients that have very successful courses and course funnels. Is it forever endlessly scalable? Probably not. But like, of course, we're gonna like grow it and build it and all of that. But like, there is a point where it's just like, when is more not actually more? Do you know what I mean? Um, like I have one client, I think I've told you guys about this last time, but in about the span of a year, we took one of her funnels from around 5 to 10K a month to about 40K a month, right? Like that's insane and amazing. And it can go up from there. It's going to go up from there. Excuse me. But on the flip side of that, like how many of us would be happy with one funnel making 40K a month for like years to come? Like I think there's just something to be said for that. And like I just think the idea that like we should never leave money on the table is so flawed. I think the idea that like you're only as good as the amount of people that can come through your programs or whatever is so flawed. And I think it makes people burn out and leave the industry because they don't see a way that this could happen, right? They're like, oh my God, I only got 5 people in my offer. Like, how will I ever get 50,000 or even 5,000? And it makes them leave when really it's like, well, what if you had an offer that was so great and so full of value that people kept coming back and buying again and again, and that over time that really grew things, and then you could add to it instead of dropping that off or going to build another one or completely burning your business to the ground, you know? Yeah, Nova said the idea of endless scalability is essentially what's wrong with the world. That's so funny. It's true. Endless scalability isn't even a thing in large businesses. At some point, they have to grow product lines, split, et cetera. Just totally. Katrina said, oh my God, completely. People are looking to scale forever and are skipping the foundation to scale from. They want to jump into a hugely scaled business from the get-go. Exactly. There is a culture of shame for wanting to maintain a good business instead of always scaling. I completely agree with that. I really do. Like, I just think so many people are missing out on great businesses in favor of that. Like, I did that live stream a while ago about how, like, I think the like 200K-ish mark is one of the hardest places you can be in business because you're basically like feeling like it's not enough and like you should be reinvesting all of that. And I think that that's why this culture happens, is because it's like reinvest. Oh, you could figure out how to make 200K. What if you figured out how to make 500K? And again, like I help clients with this all day. So I'm not saying like it's bad to go from 200K to 500K, but what I'm saying is the idea that that's the only thing that matters is, I think, what makes people leave, because they're missing what's great in front of them. And when they're missing what's great in front of them, what happens is they don't serve their clients really well. They don't take that extra precision in their marketing. They don't refine, because it's like fast, 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 scale, scale, scale. And that's what makes a lot of people leave, because they're like completely burned out, completely overspent and overinvested, even if they made a lot of money, and they don't see a path forward where, if you do it meticulously and with precision and bring like real strategy to it, but also really care about your people, like then it's pretty easy to go from 200 to 500 at a certain point, right? Because you have such a great offer in place, because you know your marketing works and you can repeat it. Like, it's not going to be because you were on 52 platforms, and like had 17 offers. Oh, Jess, tell me. I have a funny idea reel for you. I will take it. I am very up for this. Leslie said, yes, there is a time for scaling and a time for maintaining, which is also a very cool phase to be in. Totally. Yeah, back to slowing down. Yeah, I really think that's what so much of this is about. I also think that so many people stop doing what was working because they think they are somehow above that or shouldn't have to do that or whatever. And so that's another big thing I would mention here, is that like sometimes people will do something and it'll get them to a certain point, and then they're like, well, I shouldn't have to do that anymore. You know, like I think about this live stream in this group so often. Actually, I'll just use social media in general. I may have to voice message you because I have to demonstrate this. Okay, please do. Love it. Um, but I have a friend who was basically like, why are you still on social media all the time? Like, I literally do not get it. And you have, uh, a very full client roster. You have a very large wait list. Like, why are you spending time on that? And to me, it's always like, because that's what got me. And I know if I stop it, that I'll have a run, but eventually that runway will die off, right? Um, and I just think that no one thinks about that. Like, right? They're just like, well, I shouldn't have to be on live streams anymore. I have X amount of people in my programs or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but if those are what filled your programs, I probably wouldn't stop because they're full, because duh, there's a way that always like shifts. And so, yes, we want to do less and do it better, but that doesn't mean do nothing either. I think some people think that like their reputation alone is going to like sail them off into the sunset, and it will for a little bit until it won't. And so I think that's another reason we'll see people leave, is because the idea of going back and doing those things that initially created the boom for them is tricky and like, triggering to some people, I think. I think a lot of people are afraid of being bored, of not having something new going on all the time. I think that makes sense, Jennifer. Totally agree with that. Deborah said, huge sense of entitlement. I'm established. I shouldn't have to master something new from scratch. Yes, totally. Oh, shoot. I missed Katrina's. It just went away. Chelsea said, your lives and consistent. It keeps going away. Sorry. Thank you, Chelsea. Yeah, consistency is so key. McDonald's never stops marketing, said Rebecca. Not to compare our industry to fast food, but marketing never stops. Yeah, yeah. Mill said, I also think that as a role model in coaching, it's important to keep walking the talk. Yeah, true. Hi, Shantae. Good to see you. I also saw Steph, your thing went. But I saw you say hi, Steph. So thanks for being here. But yeah, I think there's so many factors. But like to sum it up, I feel like what it comes down to is like the industry has changed. Are you willing to change with it? Things were different than they are now. And if you can adapt to that and not make this giant swing, it will be pretty easy to stay in it, in my opinion, especially if a lot of people leave the industry. But if you're making these massive swings from like none of it matters to like, oh my gosh, now I have to be perfect and I have to have the perfect strategy, and now I have to like invest in all of these things that are supposedly giving me all the strategy, instead of just being like, I need a great fucking offer. I need to really be in my people's heads. I need to be consistent with my marketing, and I need to double down on a couple things and like get them working really well. That's like pretty much the whole thing, right? But I just think it's always what's hard to do. Again, like it's shocking how much the work with clients right now is like, slow down, think about this for a minute. Let's get this really good. Like, because it's hard for us. It's hard for us to slow down. It's hard for us to go back to basics. It's especially hard for us, like high performer, high achievers, to not be like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Instead of being like, be here, be here, be here, do this thing well, right? One of my clients, I was on a call with her and we were talking about like her next like launch event. And she was like, okay, I think I'll just call it this. And I was like, no, ma'am. No. We did not just name this very important launch event in 2.5 seconds. Oh, do I have some of my teeth? I do. In 2.5 seconds with like very little thought, right? Like, let's really think about it. Let's really dive in. And she was like, you're totally right. I'm so used to it just not mattering. It just being like off the cuff, like, okay, I'll call it this, moving on. I'm like, great, let's go with it. So we like just did a brainstorm session for like 10, 15 minutes on it. It was like nothing, but like that initial idea versus like what we ultimately came to were like very far apart in terms of like precision and messaging and all of that. And it's just like amazing to see what like 10 to 15 extra minutes can do, but it's just hard to take, especially if we're not used to it. Can't wait to watch the replay. Thank you, Shantae. Katrina said also all industries are always changing. Totally. I think people are looking for a business where they build it and then just coast, and literally no business has ever done that. Amen. It's so true. I feel like the overarching theme of your live streams over the last couple of years has always been be willing to adapt. I feel like that's the crux of entrepreneurship. Absolutely. Like it's exactly what Katrina's saying, right? Like, do I sell something? No. Okay. It's like exactly what Katrina's saying. Like, this is how it works. Markets change, things adapt. Like, you kind of have to love the game of that. But I feel like if you built in a time where the market was absolutely booming, you really can trick yourself into thinking it will always be that way. And then you get really bitter about having to adapt. And I think that's why people dip. It's like, because they built at a time where it was booming, they're like, well, fuck, I didn't want to do this if it wasn't that. Or it shouldn't be that. Like, it should only be that. And it's really interesting. Rebecca said time scarcity is real and shows up everywhere with my clients. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's so hard in entrepreneurship too, because like, we don't always see that immediate result. So the time of like, slow down and think about this message for 15 more minutes, we might not even realize that impact of that for weeks, a month, multiple months, depends. You know what I mean? And so it's like really hard to do that too, because we don't get that kind of like immediate hit and payoff. I mean, one thing I will say that I've been having my clients do, this is just like a little tip, but I think it's really helpful, is like test a message or thought or whatever with a reel first, right? So it's like, if you're like, oh, I'm thinking about naming an event this, do a couple reels with that kind of like titling and messaging and see if that lands. And it's like, even that works so well, but it takes slowing down. It takes being like, okay, I have this idea and now I'm going to test it in a couple ways. And now I'm going to see like what actually pops and how people feel about it. And then I'm going to go back and apply it to here. Like, it's just so different than like, oh, okay, I'll just call it 3 secrets to making more money online. Anyway, moving on. Like, you know, it's just really different. It works, but it's like, can we get ourselves to do that? Michelle said, I also think in some seasons we have more energy for adapting than others. So depending on when we're confronted with that, the universe pull to pivot can feel like a lot. Michelle, I think about this all the time. I literally send up like a wave of gratitude to the universe like once a day that this happened now and not when I was on maternity leave or something. Like, not that anyone going on maternity leave now is going to have an issue. That's not what I'm saying. I have like so many clients that are pregnant right now. So I'm not saying that necessarily, but I'm just saying for me and like where my head was at the time when my dad was like super sick. And you know, my dad ultimately passed during that time and I had like a 3-month-old. I'm just like, thank God it wasn't that. Like I would have adapted, I would have figured out, but I'm like really happy to be here at this moment. Okay, yay, you guys like that real tip. Yeah, I have so many thoughts on that, but like, yeah, like Instagram, like I did a post on this if you guys saw it on Instagram, but the theory was like Instagram is always right. And so anything we've been wanting to test, like I have a client who has a really big podcast, like she gets a lot of sponsorships and stuff for it. And so it's quite important how we name episodes and things like that. And so we've been doing this of like floating stuff on Instagram and seeing how it lands and then using that for episode titles. And yeah, there's just like a lot of ways to do it, but it's nice because that's like the place for immediate feedback, which is really cool. And then you can assume it's right. Like Instagram's right. That one was shit. Nobody liked it. Okay. Instagram's right. That one really popped. Let's do an episode with that. Deborah said this sense of bitterness really hits with leaders who are fearful, avoidant attachment style. They're used to things working a certain way. And that certainly makes them feel insecure in their leadership. So when the things that work this whole time, they're really swinging with chaos and freeze, instability, hurt, anger, and almost shut down because it's the first time they experience instability in a way. Oh, I love that, Deborah. I think that's a great perspective. Jeff said, oh my God, yes, iOS 14 came out while I was on mat leave, and that's about all I could handle. Yes. Manali said, I love that idea that Instagram is always right because it really is an algorithm that adapts to people's actual behaviors. Yeah. So like, even that I think is helpful. It's like you have like real-time ways to know what's working and what's not, but are we slowing down enough to do it? And again, that's where data comes in too. Like, are you slowing down enough to look at the data and actually do that? And I even see that in my clients who like, the ones who really push back on data and are like, no interest there or whatever, versus the ones who are like, yep, let me get on board. Let me figure this out. I need to know this now. Like there's just a different trajectory there, to be honest. And I'm not saying like data is all things and everything, but I'm saying like in a season of adaptability, of a changing marketplace, of pivoting, like yeah, that it's actually really important. And I don't just mean data in the form of dashboards, although like of course that, but I mean data in the form of like, what is Instagram telling you, Um, very important. Let me look at my notes. I have not looked at them once. Hopefully I said things I meant to say. Yeah, seems like mostly. I think like the general idea is get really good at what you're doing, before you do a lot more. And I feel like that's kind of always been the message, but I think it's more important now maybe than it was before. I think before it was like get really good at what you're doing in the sense of like, so you're not making your life harder. I feel like that was kind of always my vibe. Now I feel like it's like get really good at what you're doing because that actually is going to be the crux of what makes you money in business. And so I think that's like important to say. Alpana said, genuine coaches are hard to come by. I'm not saying money is not important, but to care about the human, totally. And I think this is where we talk about like great offers and stuff like that too. Like, if you have a great offer that makes people feel cared about and helps them get results and all that kind of stuff, like it's actually not that hard to grow it. If you don't, yeah, it's like definitely gonna be harder to grow it. Like even if you focus on your marketing. Julie said it's like your perfect one funnel thing too. Yeah, totally. Like the perfect one funnel is not like everyone has to do that, but it's like the same philosophy of like do something well and get good at that. Because if not, it is going to be really easy to burn out. Like I even think like just like with platform changes, like I used to be able to just like write content and then repurpose it everywhere. Like those were good days. Missed that a little bit. But like it doesn't work like that anymore. So it's like perfect one platform, perfect one funnel, perfect one offer. And again, it's the hardest thing to slow down and do that. But if we don't have like precision in that and our messaging, like it's just going to get harder and harder because the market's not slowing down in terms of saturation. If anything, I feel like everyone and their mom is like wanting to be a content creator now, which is fine. Like that doesn't have to be a bad thing, but if you're not finding a way to stand out in that, then obviously it will be. So I hope that is helpful. I hope it is like not so doomy gloomy, but more like it actually can be easier than we're making it out to be. But we have to have the right perspective. We have to put our heads on straight. We have to kind of not get so caught up in the like totally delusional or like make it so complicated realm and live somewhere here in the middle. Those were the good days. They were good days. But things shift. Like I think reels are fun now. Who would have thought I would have said that? These are good days too. But I hope that's helpful. If you guys have more questions on that or anything that you want to add in terms of your thoughts or anything else I could dive into, let me know. If you haven't downloaded the mini course yet, highly recommend. Just download module 1 for free. The entire mini course is $99, but you can get the first module for free. And it's kind of this vein of like, be a really great coach and that will do a lot for you. Be a really great coach and leverage that skill. And you'd be surprised how much that will grow your business. But again, it's like, don't focus on 53 things. Focus on one, do it really well. So mini course can help you with that. And yeah, just like appreciate you guys being here so much and loved this conversation. Thank you so much for all of your input. It was so valuable. And I just like love that we get to come together and do this as a community and each share on this. It just, so meaningful to me. I appreciate you all so much. I hope you have a beautiful week and I'll see you next week. Bye guys.